Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the StarCityGames.com Season 1 Invitational Weekend here in beautiful Roanoke, Virginia. Part of Season 1 of the SCG Tour, brought to you by the wonderful people over at Ultimate Guard. Cedric Phillips and Craig Krempels, we are here in the booth. Matthias Hunt and Ryan Overturf, they are hanging out for a couple rounds, just taking a couple rounds off. They'll be back for rounds 7 and 8 of Standard for you. And, of course, Nick Miller, he's doing your deck techs, picking your feature matches, player spotlights, all that jazz as we get right here for our first round of Standard action, round number 5 here from the Berglund Center in Roanoke, Virginia. We're going to watch a matchup here that I'm not sure I expected, honestly.
No.
two control decks. Now, from Shaheen, sure.
Yeah, right in his wheelhouse.
Expected, no surprise. This is what Shaheen does. It's going to be blue-based control. You've got Marvel out of the format. You've got all these cards banned. Seems like a good place and a good time to be playing Torrential Gearhulk, so that makes total sense.
Yep.
For Todd Stevens, a little bit surprised to see him doing this. He is playing a blue-white control deck that also has Torrential Gearhulk. So what you're going to be watching in just a moment is players doing a lot of nothing. And then hopefully hitting their land drops, because that's what control mirrors like this are kind of all about. We don't see these very often anymore, Craig.
No, we don't. I mean, there was a time when Counterspell was king.
True.
And you just showed up with a deck with 20 counterspells, 28 lands. It was like an absurd number of lands, and a few threats, a few card draw spells.
Yeah, and that's kind of what each player has going on here. You know, they've got card drawing spells, they've got counter spells, and anticipates, and hieroglyphic illuminations, and maybe some Glimmer of Geniuses, and they've got sensors they can cycle. But at the end of the day, we know what card is the most important one.
Mac Daddy?
That's Torrential Gearhulk.
Oh, yeah.
That's the king of this matchup. That's how they're going to try to kill each other. Yeah, truth be told, I'm taking a look here very quickly. Like, there's no creature lands running around here. There's no Creeping Tar Pits or Celestial Colonnade or any of that stuff. Wrong format for that stuff. So this should be a little bit interesting here, as the numbers between each player are very different. As an example, Shaheen playing 3 copies of Sensor, Todd Stevens playing 1. Shaheen playing 3 copies of Pull from Tomorrow, Todd Stevens only playing 1.
Yep.
So it looks like they're trying to beat different things, but it's one thing that we talked about in the pregame show. This format looks to be laden with a lot of creatures.
Yes.
So players are trying to kill a lot of creatures, and they'll draw some cards, counter some spells, so on and so forth. Our players are ready down in the feature match area. We're going to head down there right now and watch Shaheen Soorani. He is on your right with blue-black control against the very well-dressed and newest Roanoke member in Todd Stevens on your left. Blue-white control, blue-black control to kick off Standard here.
So this is my first trip to Roanoke. I haven't been here before.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, beautiful little city.
It is.
I didn't realize that Roanoke is called the Star City.
That is correct.
I thought Star City Games was just someone's creative
Just a random name?
naming of the shop. And now I just feel like I was a buffoon for so long.
Well, that's true, but it doesn't have anything to do with Star City.
Sure, but this was one of the reasons I felt like it. And it just reinforces my buffoonery, I suppose.
We still love you. It's okay. So, Shaheen's on a mulligan of 5. Todd kept 7. And now he's going to do a little bit of cycling here. He's got that cycle lands. Let me make sure I get the name right here. Fetid Pools. Fetid Pools. Don't see it a lot. Don't see it a lot. So here's the key in the matchups like this. At least the first couple of stages. Just hit your land drops.
Yep.
That's it. Now Shaheen, he just played a Choke Estuary and showed a Swamp, so we know he has land number 5. Todd does not have land number 4, and he's already discarded. He discarded a copy of Fumigate, which of course is not very good in the matchup. He'll draw a card, picked up a copy of Cast Out.
Yeah, you were talking about how it's a creature format. Todd showed up with 4 Blessed Alliance, 4 Fumigate, 4 Cast Out, 3 Stasis Snare. You know, he's just gunning to take care of creatures.
You got to remember something, too. This is Shaheen's wheelhouse.
Oh, yeah.
This is what he's been doing for probably a decade now, is playing these control decks. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're not so good. But he loves playing control.
And when they are good, we see him do really well.
We definitely do. He's always trying to be the control master. This is just his style of match that he prefers to play, which I can totally respect. And if this deck is good right now, he's going to be in a very, very good place. So Stevens is going to discard yet again. Shaheen's going to play land number 7. So though he did mulligan to 5, land drops have not been an issue. Stevens with a Glimmer of Genius.
Yeah, and I think part of this, we see Todd potentially getting punished for not playing more copies of a card like Sensor, where you can just cycle it for cheap in the early game. This is a matchup where that card's not going to be good, but you just churn through it and you keep going through your deck. Instead, Todd has other cards which aren't good right now, and he can't do anything with them, can't cycle them.
And this is one of those spots, too, where it's very clear that Todd Stevens is trying to gun after aggressive decks. You mentioned the 4 main deck copies of Fumigate, the 4 main deck copies of Cast Out. It's very clear what he's trying to beat.
Yep.
And in game 1, even if he were hitting his land drops, I think he'd be at a disadvantage here.
I would agree with that. Shaheen has a little more in the way of the threats he's dealing with. He has some Planeswalkers in Obnixilis and Liliana, and obviously he has his own Torrential Gearhulks. You already mentioned he showed up with 3 pull from tomorrow, which in the mid to late game, if he's able to resolve one of those bad boys, can just be backbreaking.
Looks like Shaheen's going to do a little cycling here of the Hieroglyphic Illumination. Super easy to say for coverage. Super easy. Definitely not having to look down and make sure I get that correct every time. Shaheen's going to go tap in some mana here on his main phase. Always risky. He's going to go with Liliana, the Last Hope.
Yeah, one of the reasons Todd was probably drawn to this blue-white deck is that it has instant speed answers to a lot of threats. When you're playing Stasis Snare and you're playing Cast Out, you don't have to be tapping out on your own turn in order to deal with some threats that have slipped through your counterspells.
They can kind of play a little blue-white flash game.
Exactly.
Cast Out's going to take care of that Liliana. Stevens has picked up a copy of Commit to Memory.
Ooh, new hands?
Yes. So want to spin the wheel, do we? We might get there. For now, Shaheen's going to draw a card. That mulligan to 5 is long gone now. He's got plenty of cards in his hand, plenty of options, at least 2 copies, it looks like, of Disallow in his hand. And now he's actually the one discarding as he discards a copy of Grasp of Darkness. Shaheen will draw. Didn't get a great look at it, but he's going to cycle a Censor. That card, not so much right now.
You don't think so?
Nah, not the best. And now he'll discard another copy of Grasp of Darkness. Stevens will play a Prairie Stream, simply pass the turn back over to Shaheen. Shaheen not willing to fire off the pool from tomorrow just yet. Takes the top card off his deck, slams it on the battlefield. It's a swamp. More land's always a good thing right now.
Oh, yeah.
Todd will discard his 3rd Fumigator of the game. And Shaheen's ready to discard. What are we watching right now? Here's a Torrential Gearhulk. So Todd's going to make the first real move. And this is a copy of Essence Scatter. Negate's going to go after that, so Todd's trying to pick a fight here. Let's build up a stack. Disallow. He's going to counter that. Put all those cards in the graveyard, gentlemen. Todd Stevens will untap.
Something finally happened.
Sort of.
But nothing really happened.
Yeah, that's true. Hieroglyphic Illumination is going to allow Stevens to draw 2 cards. He'll play an island, picked up a Plains as well off of that draw spell, and he'll simply pass the turn back over to Shaheen. Shaheen with nothing doing. Todd's going to play a land, pass the turn back.
Yeah, the mid-game Illumination that draws you 2 lands usually seems like a disappointment. In this case, it was probably one of the best things that could have happened for Todd.
I think pretty good for Todd. Here's a pool from tomorrow. Shaheen's going to draw a couple of cards. He'll, of course, have to discard one, and that's a card we'll take a look at, his pool from tomorrow, because we don't see this one much yet, but maybe in the future we will, because it's very clearly a powerful draw spell. Draw X cards, then discard a card. Now, Sphinx's Revelation, it is not.
No, but I think it's closer to that than people give it credit for.
I think so, too. I think so, too. I think Sphinx's Revelation was just a very pushed card.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
That card was absurd, obviously. But, I mean, the discard here on this card is a very small drawback.
Yeah.
You know, blue draw X at instant speed is still very strong.
A Plains here from Stevens. Looks like he's simply going to pass the turn back over to Shaheen. These players are setting things up, trying to find a way.
Yeah, don't worry, fans at home. Only another 10 turns and something's going to happen here.
How about a Torrential Gearhulk? We saw Todd Stevens try this. Didn't really go anywhere. Now Shaheen's going to try it. A couple of decent cards over there in the graveyard for Shaheen. It's kind of Gearhulk, control. Something that blue players do love. And Torrential Gearhulk, I think, is the best of the Gearhulks.
Yeah.
I think it's the most powerful of the bunch.
Big T.
Yes. We can call it Big T. Here's a Stasis Snare going after Torrential Gearhulk. This Torrential Gearhulk is going to recast a Hieroglyphic Illumination. Stasis Snare, creative answer. You did mention how Todd Stevens is trying to play at instant speed here.
Yep.
All right.
And since there was no counterfight over the Torrential Gearhulk, Shaheen should be thinking, Todd does not have many or any counterspells in his hand. So this is a good time for Shaheen to try to get a Planeswalker down on the board if he has one.
Yeah, if he's got the opportunity for an Obnixilis, maybe another Liliana, something like that, it's a good spot. There's an island there for Stevens. Shaheen's going to cycle a Fetid Pools. See if he wants to do anything else here on Stevens' end step. Looks like the answer is
We called this format creatures, creatures, creatures.
We did.
And then this is what happened.
Yeah, we did on the pregame show. Here's another copy of Torrential Gearhulk. To note, both players playing 3 copies of this card. This is Shaheen's second. Todd's already cast 1.
Yeah, it's super good, but you don't want to end up with a couple of these cluttering up your hand in the early game.
Going to recast a Hieroglyphic Illumination. Shields are down here for Shaheen, it appears. Now that Gearhulk is in. Can Shaheen protect it with some counter magic?
Yeah, I feel like resolving 2 Gearhulks for 2 extra card draw spells has put Shaheen so far ahead. It should be difficult for him to lose this game.
Here's an attack for 5. Gearhulk will die to Bless the Lion. Shaheen not even considering fighting over that. Immediately places his card into the graveyard. Liliana, really good at getting Gearhulks back.
Yeah, that's the big payoff card here. You know, he doesn't care if the Gearhulk dies. It's going to come back. He wants to fight over a cheaper spell anyway.
Liliana is in. Shaheen's going to minus it immediately. And in response, we're going to take a look at Commit to Memory. That's a response to Liliana going down.
We could have a very interesting interaction here.
We very well could. So it's Commit. Put target spell or non-land permanent onto its owner's library. Second from the top. So Liliana goes there. And then the minus resolve is going to mill 2 cards. So now it looks like that's just an answer to Liliana. Now Gearhulk's going to come back for Shaheen, which is obviously nice. And now here's another Planeswalker in Obnixilis.
Oh, you want to kill my Gearhulk? Here's a Planeswalker. Oh, you want to kill my Planeswalker? Well, I got back my Gearhulk, and here's another Planeswalker.
That's Shaheen's game right now. Now he's paying life to draw cards, and he's at 20, so he's got a lot to work with. Going to fall down to 19. Stevens will untap, and he will draw. Does have a copy of Cast Out in hand. Picked up an Anticipate. Though it is worth noting as we've watched this game, Shaheen has not really countered much of anything.
Nope.
Because he's waiting for the perfect spot. So maybe he wanted to fight over the Omnixilis, maybe not, but he immediately said, you know what, I'm not going to use my counter magic on this. I'll find a different way to beat you.
And since he's not fighting over it, I'm pretty sure that it's right.
Yeah.
You know, Shaheen knows what he's doing, navigating these decks. If you're going to pick a horse in a control mirror, this is the man you want.
Yeah, I'm choosing the guy on the right just about every time. Anticipate here from Todd Stevens. I believe he's going to take a pull from tomorrow. And now he'll untap and draw. Picked up a copy of Glimmer of Genius. Here's a Torrential Gearhulk from Shaheen. That's the one he got back from the Liliana the Last Hope's minus.
And one of the advantages that Shaheen has here is he has so many more threats in his deck. They have the same number of Gearhulks, but the Liliana is a threat by itself, and it rebuys the Gearhulks to put the threats back in his hand. Todd just is not working with a lot of cards. We've seen him be super careful with this Gearhulk that's in his hand. He can't just fire it off and have it die.
Because they're so important for him.
Then he's got 1 left in his deck. He's already lost 1.
Yeah. Shaheen did a quick check of the library, see how many cards he had left, as Todd played this Blessed Alliance. I think Shaheen's already starting away. Is there any way that I get decked here?
Of course.
I got to make sure that I don't throw this one away because he's in a pretty commanding position. And one of the real appeals here of Liliana the Last Hope is actually its mana cost, Craig.
Yes.
Only 3 mana.
Gets onto the board for cheap.
Yeah. That's a really big deal. Taking a look at Steven's hand, you mentioned the Torrential Gearhulk that's over there. There's also a Glimmer of Genius and a pull from tomorrow. And Todd's going to go with the Glimmer of Genius. We'll see if this resolves or not. Again, remember, Shaheen's got multiple counter spells in hand at this stage. He has at least 2 copies of Disallow. He's going to play 1 finally to take care of the Glimmer of Genius. I was wondering if he's ever going to pull a trigger on that thing, but his patience has certainly been rewarded.
Yeah, we've seen Todd just have to answer a lot more cards. You know, Shaheen has chosen not to fight over protecting his cards, but he had the option to do it if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Todd just he hasn't had any options.
Censor.
Oof.
Oh, for the max
Oof.
value? Oh, boy. That is rough.
That is rough.
Does that die the censor count? Should be. He's going to get back a Torrential Gearhawk now. And if Shaheen wasn't ahead before, he sure is now. Censor the draw there from Todd Stevens, kind of mocking him a little bit. Maybe he can catch something. Pull from Tomorrow also in hand here for Todd. See, he's already tapping a bunch of mana. He's going to cast Memory.
Little Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah? No, actually, no, take that back. It's a Time Twister. Time Twister, yeah. So each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draw 7 cards. So Shaheen's concerns about decking,
There they go.
they're gone. Shuffle that graveyard back in. Not sure if Shaheen had a counterspell for that or not, but he was not willing to fight over it if he did. And now he says, I'm happy to draw 7 more cards.
Well, this is very interesting to reset the board at this point where they both have, 10 lands in play or whatever it is.
Todd will get first crack at it, I guess I'll say, because he's got 6 mana available. But realistically, once Shaheen untaps that huge swath of lands, he'll be the one that actually gets first crack at it. We said Standard's a whole new world. Wouldn't have seen this with Aetherworks Marvel.
Yeah, this isn't the world I thought we'd be in today.
No. So both players will draw 7 cards. Stevens has not played a land just yet, it appears. Prairie Stream, it looks like. Yes, he'll play. I love the fake outs.
Yeah.
Gotta try to keep up with them.
Yes, no.
No,
yes.
not quite. No, not quite. I think Shaheen's just making sure he paid enough there for commit to memory. They're also trying to figure out if Stevens did play a land or not yet.
It's very easy to forget about. It seems so insignificant earlier in the turn, but now it's like, hey, we got to keep track of this.
Yep. Shaheen's going to cycle a Fetid Pool. He'll draw a card. It's time to untap that huge swath of lands, take a draw, and tick up that Liliana. There we go. That's the easy part. Choked Estuary is going to reveal a Sunken Hollow. And Shaheen will just pass the turn back. Irrigated Farmland will be cycled there by Todd Stevens. Now he'll cast a copy of Anticipate. Top couple of cards here for Todd. And he'll take another copy of Anticipate off the Anticipate. How about another Anticipate? Port Town Plains and the very terrible Fumigate are what he's looking at. And he'll take Fumigate. What do I know?
Oh, he already has a land drop to make, I think. And yeah, this is... I find this entertaining. Not everyone else might enjoy this as much as I do.
In small doses, it's great. And I haven't seen a matchup like this in quite a while. And things do generally speed up after sideboard. Haven't gotten a good look at their sideboard just yet. Wouldn't be surprised if Todd Stevens had something like a Gideon to go to. So there are ways for them to speed things up. But game 1 can be a slog. It can be a grind. Stevens going to play a Glimmer of Genius. A little more energy for him. He'll scry 2. Both those cards are going to go to the bottom. 2 cards on the way. Up to 4 energy. Now he'll play an Anticipate. Take a look at the top 3. I think he'll just take a basic land there. Those cards will go to the bottom there. Actually, I take it back to copy of Pull from Tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep.
And now he'll untap and draw. Up an island. Play that. I can keep up with it. Got a cast out there for the Liliana. Copy and negate in hand. Gonna discard that Fumigate. Yeah. Shaheen play that Sunken Hollow and plus the Liliana. Now, the thing we don't really know is what does Shaheen have in his hand? That part's a little unclear.
It's probably not a whole lot of lands.
Yeah, he's already got most of them on the battlefield. Yeah. Pull from Tomorrow. Better play around Censor, Todd.
Oh, I can't imagine this would be for the maximum.
That's for 4. Will Shaheen try to fight over this? Remember, it looked like Shaheen was winning this one in kind of a runaway before that commit to memory. Things may have changed now.
Well, even with the reset going on, he was able to start the game with a Planeswalker on the board. And with how many lands he has, he's going to be able to defend that Planeswalker pretty easily. So he's definitely still in the driver's seat, in my opinion. Todd is the one who's being forced to action here, and that is definitely beneficial to be the reactive one in the control mirror. You get to see what your opponent's trying to do first.
Prairie Stream's going to come down. You see at least 2 copies of Cast Out here for Stevens in hand. And now here's a Cast Out. Going to go after Liliana.
I would expect a fight over this.
I think that Liliana is good enough that Shaheen would like to keep it. Here's a disallow.
Todd's running out of answers for it, too. If there's already 2 cast-outs on the board,
there's, in theory, only 2 cast-outs left.
There should only be 2 cast-outs left.
Yeah, if he's playing the full 4 copies. What Shaheen does not know, we know that he is Torrential Gearhulk. Going to come on down. Essence Scatter's going to go after that. Oh, yes. Build a stack, gentlemen. Hieroglyphic Illumination resolves. 2 cards there for Shaheen. Gearhulk down. Cast Out taking care of Liliana. Now Shaheen's going to untap. Todd Stevens, the shields are somewhat down. He's only got, looks like 7 mana available untapped. An island here for Shaheen, and not a great way to capitalize on it.
Yeah, one of the benefits for Todd was that after they went Time Twistering, his enchantments staying in play don't shuffle those threats back into Shaheen's deck.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Todd did cast a Glimmer of Genius up to 6 energy. No real payouts for his deck with that energy. Just using Glimmer of Genius as maybe a better Hieroglyphic Illumination.
Oh, much, much better.
Yeah.
We see Shaheen counting the decks here. That's definitely in play, decking.
Oh, yeah. In game 1, because they can answer everything from each other. At least it certainly feels that way.
Yes, well.
She ain't going to cycle of Fetid Pools.
Todd just has 3 Torrential Gearhulks he's working with. That's not a lot of threats.
True.
You know, if you're running into a whole bunch of 4 Essence Scatters out of the other side.
All right, Torrential Gearhulk here from Todd Stevens. Nah. Essence Scatter. Will we fight? Stevens will cycle a Censor, draw a card. Glimmer of Genius is what he's found out. These players got to be a little careful, right? You start counting decks. Decking comes into the equation. A random cycle may not seem like much, but it might be a bigger deal than Todd Stevens realizes.
Sure. Well, if Todd's already behind with the number of cards in his library, then he can just keep drawing cards.
True.
You know, he's already going to lose that way, so he's got to try to win with this Gearhulk.
Got an Anticipate here from Todd. A Glimmer of Genius before that. Looks like he's found a card that he likes off the Anticipate. Torrential Gearhulk down. Cyclone Irrigated Farmland, and we're heading back Stevens' way as he untaps all those lands. He'll draw. Picked up another Glimmer of Genius. Just going to keep right on drawing.
Yeah, you get all the cards in the world, sir.
Yeah. Well, maybe Shaheen gets all the cards in the world.
Well, I expect him to be a little conservative with this because he wants Todd to deck this game.
Shaheen's going to do a little pulling from tomorrow. Shaheen will do a count, and we'll see if we can get the count on Shaheen's deck here, now that he's making it public information.
Kind of significant here.
Oh, yeah, I think it kind of works into the equation. 22 cards for Shaheen.
And on the other side?
Yeah, let's see if we can get Todd's count now, since he just counted it out. $13.
That's a big difference.
That's a huge difference.
And you see Shaheen, he's going to cast this pull for a lot now.
Todd Stevens, any copies of Approach of the Second Sun? I don't see any. I was on the hunt. We're going to have a little counter war here. Torrential Gearhulk's going to be countered. At least Sheen's going to try. VS and Scatter. Ah, another Gearhulk, huh?
We do have 2 spots remaining in the last booster draft of the day. So if you are wanting to participate in that,
Looks like that's going to resolve. So Negate's going to take care of the pull from tomorrow. The other Torrential Gearhulk's going to resolve. Going to cast a Glimmer of Genius. 2 cards on the way here for Stevens, an Irrigated Farmland and a Blessed Alliance.
Energy for days.
Yeah. Now Shaheen's going to draw a bunch of cards with pull from tomorrow. He'll discard Fatal Push. Probably a good idea. Now he's going to untap all those lands. So now here's the question. Can he beat these Torrential Gearhulks?
Yeah, I would expect so. He has 2 copies of Yeheni's Expertise in his deck, so potentially he could just double up on those right now to take care of both these. He also has Ruinous Path.
Well, here's one Yeheni's Expertise. Shaheen will get a free spell off this if he wants.
Or you could just double it up with Grasp of Darkness.
That'll work fine, too. Yeheni's Expertise plus Grasp and another Grasp, looking to take care of these Torrential Gearhulks.
Yeah, the first one was a Ruinous Path, but
Got it.
It's all the same.
It's all the same, sure.
Yeah.
Planesware from Stevens. 2 Gearhulks down. You see Shaheen counting the deck. I think only 1 Gearhulk left here for Todd Stevens,
Yeah.
and he is beat.
No, I think he was out. I think he was dry at that point.
Yeah, I don't think he has no way to win.
Correct.
Yeah, he's beat because there's no more Gearhulks left in his deck then.
Correct.
And he is going to correctly concede the game instead of wasting any more time. He's behind on cards, he's lacking win conditions, and he doesn't need to see any more cards from Shaheen's deck.
Sure, well,
pick
and
up
especially
information.
in a matchup like this that can go super long.
Easily.
You don't want to just go through the motions. You want to save yourself time. If you're definitely losing the first game, that means you're going to want to try to win 2 more
In what looks to be like 25 minutes.
in 25 minutes. Yeah. And 1 game could easily take that long. So
First one just did.
definitely smart to pack it up there.
Shaheen Soorani got a win game number 1 here over Todd Stevens. Blue-Black Control up a game here over Blue-White Control. Let's take a look at them, their sideboards, folks. And we'll see if these players are working. We will start with Todd Stevens, who's got 2 Dispels, 2 Negates, 2 Declaration Stone, 2 Forsake the Worldly, 2 Archangel Avacyn, 3 Gideon of the Trials. Maybe not the Gideon you were expecting, along with a Sphinx of the Final Word, which I have to believe is coming in. And then a Dusk Dawn.
Yeah, I think a ton of these cards are going to come in. There's just so many dead cards in this type of matchup that I would expect lots of changes. 2 Dispel, 2 Negate. I can see the Archangels coming in. The Sphinx is definitely coming in. And probably some number of these Gideons of the Trials, they seem like they could slide in potentially under some of the counter spells and just be a good clock to have.
3 mana is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And it can't be countered by Essence Scatter. It can't be countered by Negate. But Shaheen doesn't have a ton of cheap counters, and Shaheen does have more Censors than Todd does, but I'm curious if Censor is going to stay in here. Because both players, they kind of know that other player has Censor, so maybe, they're going to board some out, they can leave some in. That's this kind of little guessing game you have to play.
That's one of the little extra values you get when playing Censors. You get to play that game, and your opponent doesn't know exactly what you're going to do with it. Mm-hmm. Especially, Todd only showed up with 1 in his deck.
Yeah.
So the fact that he played a long game, his opponent definitely got to see the Censor. Shaheen potentially might go out of his way to play around this Censor when there's only 1 in the deck. You probably shouldn't be playing around it ever.
I agree with you. As we take a look at Shaheen's sideboard, 3 Negates, 2 Kalitas, Trader of Get, 3 Lay Bare the Heart, 2 Gonti, Lord of Luxury, 2 Flying Tendrils of Fatal Push. He's got his own Sphinx of the Final Word and a Henny's Expertise.
So again, lots of cards to side out in this matchup, which means you're going to want to bring in as much as possible. The 3 Negates definitely coming in. I can see the 3 Lay Bare the Hearts coming in. It just seems like a really solid card. The Gonti, Lord of Luxury, seems super strong here, and the Sphinx of the Final Word.
A lot of nice options here for both players. This game should speed up. They generally do after sideboard. And while they finish shuffling up, we're going to talk about the StarCityGames.com newsletter, which of course is your source for Magic the Gathering news. We got some highlights from some of our very best articles in there every single Thursday. Upcoming SCG Tour dates and locations, along with SCG Invitational qualifiers, game nights near you where you can pick up Smell Snare a couple months from now, and an exclusive cardboard crack comic as well. Best of all, it is totes free to sign up for. Go to StarCityGames.com/newsletter for more information.
Totes free.
Totes free.
Is that what the young kids are saying?
Yeah, it's kind of, lit and hip and whatever other Snapchats, all
It's
that
lit?
stuff.
Someone put a light on it?
Yeah, it's lit. Yeah, there's lighting on it. They have appropriate lighting. Shaheen is lit with control decks. We'll learn a little bit more about the 33-year-old from Norfolk, Virginia. 10 open top 8s with an open win. 5 invitational top 8s. Many of those were in a row, but he did not get that title. Maybe he'll get it here this week in Roanoke. He's got a master's degree in education. He's a public high school teacher. He's a Persian cooking connoisseur, and he's got a heavy dislike of puns, which not entirely sure why he's good friends with Brian Braun doing then, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I feel like that's dangerous to publish.
He could be under attack at any moment.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, you're just setting yourself up as a target.
Between BBD and LSV, those guys will just drag you right down with all those puns. And anticipate here from Todd Stevens. You see, these players are going to pick up the pace a little bit here, especially on Todd's side of things. He's got to get this match over with, and if he does win game number 2 with a little bit of time left on the clock, Shaheen would like to try to win that 3rd game.
Of course.
So draw no good here for either player. So you'll see probably both sides pick up the pace. Stevens will play a plains and pass the turn back. Shaheen's got a 4th land too. Stevens going to fire away with some sort of draw spell. He'll be a Glimmer of Genius. Shaheen not going to fight over that, so Todd will get the scry too. He's going to put 2 lands on the bottom right away. Picked up an island, I think another copy of Anticipate. Now it's time to draw an irrigated farmland.
Yeah, he wants lands, but he also wants some threats. And there's a lot of lands in the deck, and there's not a lot of threats in the deck. So I can see just sticking the lands on the bottom if you already have land drop for a turn or 2.
Hieroglyphic Illumination there from Shaheen. That'll resolve too, so both players have gotten their card drawing spells online. Stevens will untap that irrigated farmland he played last turn. Shaheen will discard an island, so he's got plenty of lands to work with. And Todd will play an island of his own. That's land number 6. We'll go back to Shaheen. Cycle a Censor. He's at least left 1 in. We know that. Now he'll draw. Picked up a copy of Pull from Tomorrow. There's a Sunken Hollow. And we go back over to Todd. An island. This is a Gideon of the Trials. Shaheen's looking at multiple copies of Essence Scatter, and you can't Essence Scatter this, though it is kind of sort of feels like a creature. He'll try Negate. Maybe. How about Disallow first? There we go. Negate here from Stevens. Shaheen, he really wants Essence Scatter. Here's Negate. Another Negate. And now Gideon of the Trials has resolved. Todd will plus it, and we're going to head back Shaheen's way. Now here's the question. Can Shaheen beat a Planeswalker that's on the battlefield? Todd demonstrated he's got plenty of good ways to go about doing that with cast outs and everything else. So Shaheen says, I'll play my own Planeswalker. It's a copy of Ob Nixilis. He goes up to 6, loses a life to draw a card. Gideon going to come into Ob Nixilis, and now there is Sphinx of the Final Word that we'll take a look at.
That's a big drop here.
Yes. Shaheen is going to pay a life to draw a card with Ob Nixilis up to 3 loyalty counters, but the most important card on this battlefield is the 5/5 Sphinx, which can't be countered. It's got flying, it's got hexproof. Instant and sorcery spells you control can't be countered by spells or abilities. The first one to have that on the battlefield is generally going to get the job done, as here is a Leber the Heart, showing an Essence Scatter, a Negate, and a Commit to Memory.
Yeah, the Sphinx is just such a big clock. It's going to get to work so quick, and really the best way to deal with the Sphinx is with your own Sphinx.
Shaheen's going to play a Pull from Tomorrow, so he'll draw a couple of cards. He'll, of course, have to discard a card, so there goes a Fetid Pools. That's a Fetid Pools that he's going to play for his land for the turn, and we're going to go back over to Todd Stevens. Gideon will untap. 7 lands. Could have 8 on the battlefield if he'd like. Perhaps he wants to cycle that irrigated farmland that he just drew. But it might also be time to just ignore that Ob Nixilis and get in there with these 2 creatures.
Yeah, it would be a 2-turn clock. So there's definitely an argument to be made for leaving Ob Nixilis around or dealing with it some other way and just going after Shaheen's life total here.
Here comes Stevens. Gideon going to fire in there along with the Sphinx, and I believe, he's just going to knock Shaheen down to 9, make it a 2-turn clock, and says, I don't care about Ob Nixilis drawing cards, making you lose life, as Shane's going to fall down to 8. The expensive Sorcery Master is going to tap some mana on his turn. What's it going to be? He'll go with the Leber of the Heart.
It's a good way to start things off.
Yeah, there are worse ways to go about doing it. He'll take Commit to Memory. Essence Scatter and a land left here for Todd.
Cycling land.
Yeah, we can't forget that. That'll probably turn into a new card here in just a moment. And Shaheen said, you know what, don't worry about cycling. We're all set.
I've had enough, sir.
Now, we had a feeling things were going to speed up after Sideboard, because they generally do in matchups like this. Todd being able to go to Gideon, which is obviously a clock, and it's going to change the way that Shaheen plays the game, but Sphinx of the Final Word, as good as advertised.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a big boy.
Yeah. And all the text is relevant on that card. Flying, hexproof, it can't be countered. Your instants and sorceries can't be countered. Every piece of that Buffalo matters. So
you use all the meat?
Oh, yeah, every ounce. Use the bones, make a stew. All of it. All of it. So Todd Stevens going to tie things up here against Shaheen. Blue-white control, blue-black control, getting ready here for game number 3. Take a look at the sideboards one more time. One more time. Dispels and negates here for Todd Stevens. We of course saw the Sphinx. Do you think Archangel Avacyn's here?
I would expect that it is.
Yeah.
It's another instant speed threat. So if there's a point where Shaheen taps out, it's easy to sneak this big body onto the board.
Yeah, you see these players are going to shuffle up here pretty quickly because, again, time is of the essence. So Shaheen did do a little light sideboarding, it appears. Looked like he's going to move one card in and one card out. But as he gets ready to go, we talked about Goose of St. Traff quite a few times here this week, and we're going to do it again because it's one of our favorites. Look at it. It's so pretty. So pretty. Remember game night, and also available for our creature collection as well. We'll have it in sleeves, player bundles, and play mats. Looks like Monday morning you can learn more about that. Go to StarCityGames.com/creature collection for more info about our good friend, the Goose of St. Traff.
We take ourselves very serious here at Star City
This
Games.
business is not a joke.
Yeah.
Okay?
Are you telling me or them?
Both.
No, I know.
It's serious business here in the booth and with the Goose.
I can't believe you feel like you have to tell me that.
Someone spent a long time thinking of that idea and drawing it, and neither of those people were me.
But I've never been silly or non-serious in the booth once.
Good man. Good man. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
We head back to the match here, and we're going to learn a little bit more about the very well-dressed Todd Stevens, newest member of the Roanoke crew. Originally from Denton, Texas, is the 31-year-old. He's got 9 open top 8s, burst on the scene just 2 years ago with 1 open win, which we got to see
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago with Eldrazi-tron for Todd Stevens, which it looks like he went 3-1 with in the modern portion because you know that's his deck of choice.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Did he switch?
Yes.
To what? Don't say Shadow.
He was working with Tom Ross.
Oh, Greentron?
Greentron.
Wow.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised as well.
Wow, okay. All right, I take it all back. Inspired to dress nice by the character Neil Caffrey from the TV series A White Collar. He flew to Australia by himself once to play in a tennis tournament. He's a full-time Magic streamer on Twitch. He's all-around good guy, too. And we'll be seeing him making some Versus videos here on StarCityGames.com. He already made one last week with Brad Nelson, Eldrazi-tron versus Grixis Shadow. A lot of fun there between those two.
Yeah, and that open win was a long time coming for him.
Oh, yeah. He's put in a lot of work. He's traveled to, since he burst onto the scene 2 years ago when we did the SCG Tour in Dallas, and he introduced himself to me and Patrick Sullivan, said he was going to be playing a lot on the SCG Tour. He's seriously been to basically every weekend.
Yep.
It's just unbelievable how many events he's gone to.
Yeah, he puts in the time. He goes to all the events. He's practicing constantly during the week. He plays all sorts of decks.
The range is wide.
And he's surrounded himself with other top-notch players. This whole thing is just a recipe for success.
Does he have a Gideon? He does not. So I think Shaheen having some land issues. That's why he had to counter and anticipate. And now Todd having land issues. Ah, yes, here we go. This is what I'm talking about, baby. Neither player can do anything. Shaheen's going to discard a pull from tomorrow. Todd picked up a copy of Essence Scatter. So in the first game we saw Shaheen mulled a 5 and both players basically not miss a land drop the whole game. Then we saw a game that ended very quickly as Shaheen's going to cycle a Censor, take the top card off of his library, put it on the battlefield. Land number 4 here for Stevens. He's going to play a Glimmer of Genius. That is going to resolve, it appears. He's looking at 2 lands, so I think, I think we're probably keeping that.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, he needs some lands, baby.
And it's so funny watching Shaheen stuck on 2 lands, keeping a 7-drop in his hand.
Easy keep. Here's a Liliana.
Can't discard that 7-drop.
No way. That's going to plus. Now, we could have Liliana Ultimate work itself into the equation here if it sticks around long enough. For now, Stevens will play land number 5, which is an irrigated farmland. He'll pass the turn back over to Shaheen. Shaheen picked up a pool from tomorrow. Not so much. Shaheen might be thinking, lay bare the heart. Yes. He will cast the discard spell. We'll take a look at it. The old lay bare the heart. It's a newer one. A lot of people see players going towards transgress the mind, but for this spell, same mana cost. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-legendary, non-land card from it, and that player discards that card.
I like this card.
I like it. I like it.
You know, I really miss 1 mana discard spells.
I kind of miss duress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically duress. But I appreciate that, you know, Wizards doesn't want to make the 1-drops too powerful. We don't have 1 mana mana accelerants right now.
Thank goodness.
And we don't have overpowered 1 mana discard spells right now. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have a break from Noble Hierarch and Elvish Mystic and the gang.
Yeah,
from
all
standard.
of them. Yeah.
It's nice to have a little bit of a break from that. Shaheen going to cycle a Censor. Simply going to pass the turn back. Discarding a pull from tomorrow. Todd with the Plains. He's got a copy of Archangel Avacyn at the ready. He's going to play that right now, it appears. And that's in there. Shaheen will draw. Having some real problems here. Can't find a 4th land. Picked up another copy of Lay Bare the Heart. But he's staring down a 4/4 flyer. Cycle Censor will Shaheen. Picked up a copy of Omnixless.
Yeah, this is a tough spot for him.
And now Shaheen will play Lay Bare the Heart. 2 negates, an Essence Scatter, Stasis Snare, and a Glimmer of Genius. So Stevens will untap and draw. He picked up an island. In for 4. Shaheen's going to fall down to 16. Glimmer of Genius. It's an open window for that Gideon if he wants to take it. I take it back. Look at how he tapped his mana. Can't play it.
And like you said, they're trying to play fast.
Yep.
And a little mistake like that could be crucial in this game.
Might not seem like much, but it was. Here's Liliana. That'll get negated.
Yeah. On the previous turn, Shaheen really wanted to discard that Glimmer of Genius with the Lay Bare the Heart, but he can't beat the multiple negates. He's already behind on the board. He has to resolve some spells. So he took a negate, and the Glimmer of Genius was very good for Todd.
Yeah, he just needed a clearer path for his spells to actually start resolving and hope that the Glimmer of Genius would not be good, but it's so unlikely Glimmer of Genius is going to be bad.
Yeah.
With how much selection you have there. Here's a Ruinous Path going to go after Gideon. Negate will take care of that as well. So now Stevens will untap. He's probably going to fire up a Gideon here in just a moment. But first, he'll take a moment to draw 2 cards. Port Town, Prairie Stream. He'll play the Port Town in for 8. Shaheen's going to fall down to 4. And I'm not sure Shaheen has any outs here. He does not. Todd Stevens going to win this match here over Shaheen Soorani. 2-1. Blue-white control going to take care of blue-black control. And it was Shaheen's missteps with the lands that ended up costing him that game.
Yeah, that was critical, but we also saw the effectiveness of Todd's sideboard.
Yeah.
He had some cheap threats, he had some instant speed threats, and he just had a greater density of threats in his deck.
Yeah, you know, game 1 he doesn't have a lot of threats, and that's actually why he can